Have you ever sent a text to a guy you really liked and then just sat there staring at your phone, watching those three little dots appear and disappear, and your heart doing this weird little drop every single time they vanish without a reply? You read your message back for the 10th time. Did that sound needy? Did that sound boring? Did I just kill this before it even started? If you have ever felt that specific kind of anxious silence, the kind where a phone screen feels heavier than it should, I need you to know something right now before we go any further. It is not about finding the perfect words. It is not about playing games, waiting exactly 3 hours to respond, or pretending you are busier than you are. Men do not fall for tricks. They fall for feelings. And there are 5 specific kinds of texts, 5 very specific emotional signals that make a man feel something he cannot quite explain, something that makes him want to keep the conversation going, keep pursuing, keep showing up. By the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly what those 5 texts are, why they work on a psychological level, and how to use them in a way that feels completely natural, completely you, with 0 games and 0 guessing. So stay with me, because texting isn't really about texting. It's about understanding how a man's mind and heart actually work. And once you understand that, you will never look at your phone the same way again. Let's talk about the pain first, because I know it's real. You've probably experienced this feeling of composing a message like you're diffusing a bomb. One wrong word and the whole thing could go off. You send something you thought was funny and it lands with a single word reply. Haha. Just that. And now you're spiraling, wondering what that means, wondering if he's losing interest, wondering if you already said too much or not enough. Maybe you've had that friend, the one who always seems to have guys chasing her, replying instantly, showing up with flowers for no reason. And you've sat there thinking, what does she know that I don't? What is she doing differently? You've probably even read articles, watched videos, tried the rules, waited the exact right amount of time before texting back, only to still feel like you're guessing in the dark. There's a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from trying to decode a person through a screen. You reread his messages, searching for tone. Is he interested or just being polite? Did that period at the end of his sentence mean he's mad? Or is that just how he types? You've probably shown his texts to your friends, asking them to translate, asking them what they think it means, hoping someone else can tell you what your gut is too anxious to trust. And underneath all of that anxiety is something deeper. A fear that maybe you're just not naturally good at this. That some women have it, some magnetic, effortless thing, and you don't. That no matter what you say, you'll either come across too strong or too distant, too available or too aloof. And there's no version of you that lands just right. Here's the truth though, that exhausting guessing game you've been playing, it was never actually about finding magic words. It was about a misunderstanding of what men are actually responding to when they read a text. So let's get into the big reframe, because this is the piece that changes everything. Men are not attracted to text messages. They are attracted to the feeling a text message gives them. Read that again because it matters. A man does not lay awake thinking about your grammar or your perfectly timed reply. He lays awake, if he does at all, replaying a feeling. The feeling of being seen. The feeling of being wanted but not needed. The feeling of being genuinely interesting to someone instead of just convenient. Here's an analogy that will make this click. Think about a campfire on a cold night. A campfire doesn't work by being the biggest fire possible, throwing flames in every direction, demanding attention. A campfire works because of its warmth, its steadiness, the fact that people are naturally drawn toward it without being forced. A text message that makes a man feel warmth, curiosity, ease, and appreciation works exactly like that fire. People don't chase blazing infernos. They gather around something that feels good to be near. This is the central truth of this entire video. The 5 texts men love are not clever lines. They are 5 different ways of creating an emotional experience. An experience that makes a man feel respected, wanted, amused, and safe all at once. Once you understand the feeling behind each type of message, you will never need a script again because you'll understand the principle underneath it. Let's break down these 5 texts one at a time and really sit with what each one does emotionally, because the depth here matters more than the specific words. The first text that men love is what I call the specific appreciation text. This is different from a generic compliment. A generic compliment says, "You're funny," or "You're sweet." Those are nice, but they're forgettable because they could apply to literally anyone. A specific appreciation text names something particular, something only he did, something only he would recognize about himself. Think about Daniel, a guy who spent an entire Saturday helping his friend's sister move into a tiny 4th-floor apartment with no elevator. Nobody thanked him in a way that really landed until days later she texted him, "I keep thinking about how patient you were carrying that couch up 4 flights without complaining once." That kind of steadiness is rare. Daniel read that message 3 times, not because it was flattering in a shallow way, but because someone had noticed something true about who he actually is, not just what he did. Here's the emotional insight underneath this. Men, especially men who have spent years being valued only for what they provide, crave being seen for their character, not just their function. Society often teaches men that their worth is tied to performance, achievement, and usefulness. So when a woman notices something about his patience, his humor, his integrity, something beneath the surface, it lands in a completely different place inside him. It says, "I'm not just useful to you, I matter to you." The problem isn't that men don't want compliments. The problem is that most compliments are so generic, they never actually reach the part of him that's hungry to be truly known. Think of it like gardening. If you scatter seeds carelessly across concrete, nothing grows, no matter how many seeds you throw. But if you plant one seed in the right spot with the right soil, something real can take root. A specific, genuine observation is that one seed planted correctly. It doesn't need to be big. It needs to be true. So instead of texting, "You're so nice," you might text something like, "I noticed how you didn't rush the waiter tonight, even though we were starving. That patience says a lot about you." That's it. That's the whole shift from generic to specific, from surface to soul. The second text men love is the playful tension text. This is the text that carries a little bit of teasing, a little bit of banter, a spark that says, "I'm comfortable enough with you to challenge you a little and confident enough not to just agree with everything you say." Picture Emma texting a guy named Marcus after he jokingly bragged about being an incredible cook. Instead of just saying, "Haha, that's cool," she replied, "Okay, big talk. I'll believe it when I actually taste something you made that didn't come from a delivery app." Marcus didn't just laugh. He felt something shift. Suddenly, there was a challenge, a little bit of a game, something to prove, something to look forward to. Here's why this works on a psychological level. Men are wired, both by nature and by social conditioning, to respond to a bit of healthy challenge. Constant agreement, constant validation can actually feel flat, even boring over time. But when a woman playfully pushes back, teases a little, refuses to just fold into agreement, it signals confidence. It signals that she isn't performing for his approval. And paradoxically, that makes him want her approval even more. Confidence isn't built when people always agree with you. Confidence is recognized in the moment someone gently disagrees with you and you realize you still feel safe. Think about sports for a second. A game with no resistance isn't a game at all. If your opponent simply lets you score every single time, there's no thrill, no tension, no memory made. But when there's a little bit of push and pull, a worthy challenge, that's when people actually get invested. That's when the game becomes memorable. Playful tension in texting works the exact same way. It creates just enough friction to make the connection feel alive instead of flat. This does not mean sarcasm dripping with negativity or texts designed to put him down. This is warm teasing. Teasing that clearly comes from a place of enjoyment, not criticism. The tone matters enormously here. It should always feel like an invitation to play, never an attack. The third text men love is the vulnerability text. Now, this might surprise you because a lot of advice out there tells women to appear completely put together, completely mysterious, completely unbothered at all times. But real emotional connection requires occasional vulnerability on both sides. Consider Priya texting a man named Jordan she'd been talking to for a few weeks. Instead of only sending playful or witty messages, one night she wrote, "Honestly, today was rough. I didn't get the promotion I was hoping for, and I'm trying not to let it get to me too much." She wasn't looking for him to fix anything. She was simply letting him in. Jordan's response wasn't performative sympathy. He felt trusted. He felt like she saw him as someone safe enough to be honest with. And that trust is exactly what most men are quietly craving, even if they'd never say it out loud. Here's the emotional truth underneath this. Many men go through life feeling like they have to be the strong one, the steady one, the problem solver. When a woman shows a small, honest piece of vulnerability, it doesn't make her look weak. It makes the connection feel real instead of performed. It gives him permission, even if just a little bit, to be human too, instead of only ever being the guy who has it together. Think of vulnerability like an iceberg. Most people only ever show the small visible tip above the water, the polished, confident, easygoing version of themselves. But real connection happens beneath the surface, in the part most people hide. When you share a small, honest piece of what's beneath your own surface, even something small like a rough day or a moment of doubt, you're inviting him to recognize that beneath his surface, there's room to be honest too. This isn't about oversharing trauma on day 3 of talking to someone. It's about small, honest moments. I was nervous to text you first, or I actually really needed today to go well and it didn't. These small openings build real trust, brick by brick. The fourth text men love is the future pacing text. This is a text that subtly, gently paints a picture of continued connection without being pushy or presumptuous. It's the difference between only ever talking about right now and occasionally hinting toward what's ahead. Take Sophia texting a man named Ethan after he mentioned he'd never tried Ethiopian food. A few days later, she sent, "I still think about that Ethiopian place you've never tried. We're definitely fixing that." Notice what that sentence does. It's warm, it's low pressure, but it plants a small seed of the future. It says, without demanding anything, I see us continuing this. Ethan didn't feel trapped or pressured by that message. He felt anticipation. He felt like there was something to look forward to, a reason the conversation mattered beyond just this exchange. Here's why this lands so deeply for many men. A lot of men have experienced relationships or situationships that felt like they existed only in fragments. Conversations with no real direction. Connections that never seemed to be building toward anything. A future pacing text breaks that pattern. It signals, gently, that this isn't just idle chatting. There's a we forming, even in a small way. Think about mountain climbing for a moment. Nobody climbs a mountain by only ever looking at the ground directly beneath their feet. They occasionally look up toward the summit to remember why they're climbing in the first place. A future-pacing text is that occasional glance upward. It reminds him there's a summit worth reaching, a someday worth looking forward to, without ever demanding he commit to anything right now. The key here is lightness. This is never "so when are we getting married" energy. It's small and playful. We should. Next time. Someday we're doing that. Small phrases that plant big feelings. The fifth text men love is the genuine curiosity text. This might be the most overlooked one of all, because it's not about you at all. It's about him. It's a text that asks a real question, a question that shows you're actually curious about his inner world, not just his logistics. Think about Aisha texting a man named Leo who had mentioned once, almost in passing, that he used to play guitar as a teenager. Weeks later, she asked, "Do you ever miss playing guitar? What made you stop?" Leo sat with that message for a long moment. Nobody had asked him that in years. Not because it was a groundbreaking question, but because someone remembered and someone cared enough to ask. Here's the emotional insight. In a world of surface-level small talk, how was your day? What are you up to? A question that goes even one layer deeper feels rare, almost startling. It tells him, I'm not just passing time with you. I'm actually interested in who you are. And that feeling, being genuinely interesting to someone, is one of the most magnetic feelings a person can experience. Think of it like a storm rolling across dry land after a long drought. Most conversations are surface water, quick, shallow, evaporating almost as soon as they happen. But a genuinely curious question is like rain that actually soaks into the ground, reaching roots that have been thirsty for a long time. That's the kind of question that gets remembered, replayed, appreciated. This isn't about interrogating someone or turning every text into a therapy session. It's about listening earlier in a conversation, holding on to small details he mentioned, and circling back to them later with real interest. That's it. That's the whole secret. People remember who remembers them. So let's bring these 5 together, because here's the deeper thread connecting all of them. Specific appreciation says, I see who you really are. Playful tension says, I'm confident enough to be myself around you. Vulnerability says, I trust you enough to be honest. Future pacing says, I see this continuing. And genuine curiosity says, you matter to me beyond the surface. None of these are tricks. None of these require you to hide who you are or perform a version of yourself you don't recognize. They are simply 5 doors into deeper emotional connection. And the beautiful thing is, you already have the ability to open every single one of them, because they all come from paying attention and being real. The problem was never that you didn't know the right words. The problem was believing there were secret words in the first place. Instead of understanding, there's a feeling underneath every message that actually matters. So here is how you actually apply this starting today. Before you send your next text to someone you're interested in, pause for just a moment and ask yourself one question. What feeling am I creating with this message? Not what am I saying, but what am I making him feel? If your text is just filling silence out of anxiety, notice that and give yourself permission to wait until you actually have something real to say. Start collecting small details. When he mentions something in passing, a hobby he used to love, a fear he brushed off with a laugh, a small moment from his day, write it down if you need to. bring it back up later. That single habit alone will set you apart from almost everyone else texting him. Allow yourself one honest moment per conversation. You don't need to overshare, but let one message each week be real instead of performed. Let him see a small piece of your actual day, your actual feelings, instead of only ever curated, confident messages. Practice light teasing without ever making it sharp or cutting. The goal is warmth with a little spark, not sarcasm with an edge. If you're not sure whether a tease landed as playful, follow it quickly with something clearly affectionate, so the warmth is never in question. And finally, give yourself permission to plant small seeds about the future. Not big declarations, just small, light mentions that say, without pressure, I see this continuing. Those tiny seeds do more relationship building than any perfectly crafted paragraph ever could. Here's what I want you to remember most from everything we've covered today. You were never missing some secret formula. You were simply missing the understanding that connection is built through feeling, not performance. Confidence isn't built when someone chooses you. It's built when you choose yourself first and text from that place instead of from anxiety. The next time you're staring at your phone wondering what to say, I want you to remember this video. Remember that the goal was never to be perfect. The goal was to be real, specific, warm, a little playful, and genuinely curious. That combination doesn't just make men respond, it makes them remember you long after the conversation ends. You are not behind. You are not doing this wrong. You were simply never taught what actually matters. And now you know. If this video helped you see texting and maybe even connection itself in a completely new way, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, because we go deep into psychology, relationships, and real emotional growth every single week. And I don't want you to miss what's coming next. If you got even one thing out of today's video, tap that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who need to hear exactly this. And before you go, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, tell me, which of these 5 texts do you already do naturally, and which one do you want to start using this week? I read every single comment, and I would love to hear your story. Take care of yourself. Trust what you now know, and I'll see you in the next video.